So Cedric started his professional career as an officer in the U.S. Army, followed by a corporate career that spanned 3 decades, not one, 3 decades. He doesn't even look old enough to have all that experience, right? He looks like a kid. Upon leaving the military, he joined Abbott Laboratories, which we spoke about earlier, where he spent 27 years in multiple sales and marketing roles, including sales executive, advertising product manager, regional sales director. Ooh, that's the big one. Global director of sales operations. That's the big one. That's the one where you're going to have to answer for other people. Throughout his tenure, Cedric and his teams consistently achieved recognition for high performance and commercial excellence. For his success with Abbott, Cedric was recruited by Carrier Global to build and lead a new commercial revenue operations department as its global director. In that capacity, he led a team that generated double-digit revenue growth, and within 3 years, their annual revenue increased from $450 million to $1.2 million. Recently retired from a 30-year corporate career, Cedric is now a managing partner with J. Galt Finance Services. At J. Galt, he is on a crusade to ensure that small businesses have the same level of finance success as large corporations like Abbott and Carrier. Cedric attained his BA in political science from Harvard University and his MBA from University of Memphis. He holds certifications as a trainer, teacher, coach, and speaker with John Maxwell team. In his personal time, Cedric is active with the Southern Maryland chapter of his fraternity Alpha Phi Alpha. I'm not sure how to pronounce that because we don't have that in Canada, so sorry. Where he served as the vice chair of Education Committee and the Alpha Foundation. I'm going to let you correct me on that one. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you very much. No, you did perfect. The only thing is I am a proud graduate of Howard University. I think you'd mentioned Harvard, but it's Howard, which is as good or better in my mind. So, but I will share the screen and get going. Oops. All right, so first, Marianne, again, thank you very much for hosting, this conference. I think financial freedom for small businesses is probably one of the most important, maybe under talked about topic for small businesses. As you mentioned, there's a passion that we all have as entrepreneurs, and the passion sort of drives the day. So I'm going to start getting into it by sharing a story of a small business owner. Her name is Katie Pierce. And I met Katie about 4 months ago at a local chamber meeting. And she told a story of her journey with her business. And it was so compelling that I asked her, if I could share this story. And she said yes. By profession, Katie is a 9th grade English teacher, but she had a passion to basically be a restaurant owner. And specifically, her passion is centered around having a restaurant so that people could come and community can come for what she calls fun and food. And so she, in 2017, opened up Grill 13. It's an Irish pub in our town, and good food, good fun. I think the picture there is karaoke night. She has different themes. So karaoke means a lot of loud bad singing, but people are really enjoying themselves. She's also able to be involved with the community. They do a lot of charity events, et cetera. And the business was doing sort of very well for years. And like a lot of businesses, 2020 with COVID, they had to make a pretty big pivot from a business on site to basically carry out and delivery. And she borrowed, money and still had some revenue coming in, but basically just tried to keep her head above water and make payroll through COVID. And fortunately, she was able to kind of survive the COVID phase. But unfortunately, when her lease was up to be renewed, the cost of the renewal increased by 20%. So after borrowing and as Yara mentioned, the credit score went down from borrowing too much. She couldn't afford to take out any additional loans. And so last August, she had to close her doors. And Grow 13, kind of went out of business. At least that site went out of business. But what she did do, because she still is an entrepreneur, so she started catering. So this is her and her husband and their catering service. And she's calling this her build out phase, kind of like a reboot. And I asked Katie, if she would share any words as to where she is right now in her journey. Her statement is right here. It's basically the build-up process has been an expensive challenge. And right now they're in a dig out of debt situation, right? Katie's story is not unusual. Many small businesses kind of find themselves, going through a series of different activities to keep their business going. And I would ask you, like Yara had asked you that, she'd asked the question that you could answer virtually. I would ask you to think about these questions, right? Have you used personal credit for business expenses? And Yara's going to really appreciate some of what I talk about because it dovetails what she talked about. So I think we're on the same page. Or personally loan money to your business. In the case with Katie, she had to start to use personal credit for her lease. And ultimately, as you continue to borrow money and as you continue to try to make ends meet, it impacts your personal credit. And oftentimes you can no longer get loans because of that. And you unfortunately have to close your doors. While that's not unusual, I'll make the case that it's very important for small businesses to be successful in these communities. And I'm going to use some facts and some data to sort of support that. And my source is going to be Forbes January edition. They did a report on small businesses, and this is all US based, but there was roughly 33 million small businesses in the United States, of which nearly half employ the US workforce, 46%, amounting to about 62 million people. So when you break that all the way down to local communities, like with Katie and her business, it's so important for these small businesses to be successful and for them to have that financial freedom. Because not only does it impact the business owner like Katie, her livelihood, and her family, but all of her employees, their livelihood, and their families, and also the community that enjoys these small businesses because they become heartbeats of these communities. So it's very important for these businesses to have that financial viability. Unfortunately, roughly 50% of small businesses have to close their doors within 5 years, about 90% in 10 years. And the most unfortunate statistic of them all is usually when a small business closes its doors, the owner is shackled with about $80,000 in debt on average. So what I'm going to talk about for the rest of this discussion is how you can separate, to Yara's point, and keep separate your personal credit from your business credit by establishing a credit profile on your EIN, which will represent your LLC, C Corp, and S Corp. When this happens, your assets will no longer be personally at risk. Another thing that happens is that you will have the funds to manage and run your business and also weather storms when they occur, and they will occur, but also to grow your business if the opportunity presents itself as well. So I'm going to cover three things in my remaining time. One, I'm going to go line by line how you can separate the personal credit and what the differences are between personal credit and business or corporate credit. Two, I'm going to walk through an example of a small business that went through the corporate credit building journey and show you how, once you do get to the corporate credit status, how powerful that can be to you as a business owner. And then three, I'm going to walk through a seven-step process that this business used and that we've had many, many businesses, small businesses go through. Okay. If I can just proceed. Okay, there we go. So we're all aware of the consumer credit bureaus. We're aware of TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, and they take a look at your social security number, and that social security number represents you. And then they look at 5 factors. They look at your payment history, utilization, your lines of credit. They'll look at new credit as well as the mix of credit. And based on that, you get a credit score between 300 and on average 300 and 850, and as much as 900, as Marianne stated, for some people, very few people. I finally met someone who had credit over 850 like 10 minutes ago, Marianne. But that's rare. But did you know that there's also 3 separate business credit bureaus? There's Dun & Bradstreet, there's Experian Business, which is distinct and separate from Experian Consumer. There's Equifax Business, which is distinct and separate from Equifax Business. And the business credit bureaus operate very different than the consumer credit bureaus. So what I'm going to walk through right now, line by line, are those key differences. So for personal credit or consumer credit, like I mentioned, you have your 3 consumer credit bureaus. They look at the social security number that represents you. They then assess these 5 factors. And based on those 5 factors, you get your credit score. On the corporate or business credit side, you have the 3 business credit bureaus. They look at your EIN. In theory, your EIN should represent your LLC, C Corp, or S Corp, in theory. And I'll talk a lot more about that in a moment. Also, those 3 business credit bureaus, instead of looking at those 5 factors, they look at your demonstrated on-time payment. And I'll talk about that in a moment. And the scale to measure and assess your business credit score is not 350 to 850 or 900. It's 0 to 100. So those are some of the specific differences. But one of the biggest differences between personal credit and corporate credit is that everything on the left-hand side of the screen is done automatically. Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax, they automatically look at your social security number, which represents you. Every transaction you make with lenders and vendors, they automatically report those transactions to one or more of those consumer credit bureaus, and then you get your score. Nothing on the corporate credit side is done automatically. In order for your EIN to represent you, to those three business credit bureaus, a credit profile has to be established. And the credit profile is connected to the EIN, and then you sort of become visible as a legal person to those three business credit bureaus. And I'll walk through that in a moment. I mentioned that all of the transactions on the consumer side, the lenders and vendors automatically report to the consumer credit bureaus. On the business side, only 7% of lenders and vendors report to the three business credit bureaus. So as a result, your business credit score or your corporate credit score is oftentimes not accurately reflecting your actual payment history. So the two words I like you to think about when we talk about personal credit versus corporate credit is, for personal credit, think automatic. Everything is done automatically. For corporate credit, think intentional. Everything has to be done intentionally. And we're going to walk through that, starting with intentionally establishing your credit profile. Okay, so as I mentioned, the three business credit bureaus, they look at your credit profile as it's represented on your EIN. And what they're looking at for are roughly 125 different data points. And those data points are to show them how fundable and credit worthy you are as a business. And they, in essence, are looking at how credible your business is and how consistent your business presents itself to the business world. So as an example, if your business has a Gmail or a Yahoo email address, it speaks to its credibility to those three business credit bureaus, not as credible. If it doesn't have a website or at least a landing page, again, that will speak to its credibility, again, as it relates to those three business credit bureaus assessing your company. The business name, is the business name consistent as you make transactions with different lenders and vendors and contractors and the Secretary of State? Do you consistently appear? If not, again, that will impact the credibility of your business and the fundability of your business. And if you're my age or older, before there was Google search and Yelp, there was a phone book and 411. Some of you guys may not even know what that is, but 411 was, if you needed information on a business, you call 411 and they told you, the information you needed. Well, a part of credibility now for these three business credit bureaus is your business needs to be registered to the National 411 registry. So those are examples of the 125 sort of data points that need to be established on your EIN. Once established, then your EIN will reflect your LLC, C Corp, or S Corp to those three business credit bureaus. But that has to be done intentionally, okay? So now I'm going to go through a use case. This is a small business that we work with that went through the corporate credit building journey. This is a trucking company out of Texas. The owner's name is Christine, and Christine's business does about $1.5 million of annual top line revenue. Now she has personally guaranteed, all the expenses required to run her business. She's taken out lines of credit, et cetera. But when she started this process of building corporate credit, she did not have a credit profile established, and she did not, most of her lenders and vendors were part of that 93% that don't automatically report to the business credit bureaus. So when she started, the three business credit bureaus had a corporate credit limit recommendation for her of $1,000, which, for a trucking company that generates $1.5 million, that's almost like no dollars. But after walking through this process, after a few months, She got a credit limit recommendation of $6,900, then $15,600, then $65,600. More interesting. Once she completed this process, she was eligible for $750,000 of corporate credit. And let me explain. Corporate credit means it's untethered, non-recourse, and she does not personally guarantee it. So when you're talking about the power of corporate credit, when we're talking about the separation, she now is able to manage her business in many, many ways. If she wants to grow it, if she wants to add a truck, if she needs to weather the storm because maybe fuel prices went up, or if there's another supply chain sort of challenge, she may make the decision to maybe buy supplies in bulk and things like that. But she won't have to make those decisions based on borrowing money and personally guaranteeing that money. So this is kind of the power of, corporate credit and financial freedom. So I'm going to walk through the process that Christine went through. And we've worked with about 43,000 small businesses that have gone through the same process. I should mention that this is our process at J. Galt. I'm not suggesting that, that everyone uses this process. It is ours. We're very comfortable with it. And it works for our members. But no matter how you go through this process, these steps would be required. So what you're looking at right now represents a software platform. We have a software platform that embeds all the rules and guidelines required to get towards corporate credit in 7 steps. And so I'm going to walk through each of these steps. And if you can think through the slide prior and Christine and her business, it was a similar journey that she went through. So the first step is basically establishing that credit profile. We call this, basically establishing your fundability foundation and getting your LLC, C Corp, or S Corp a makeover. That's when we're making all the adjustments on those 125 data points, right? That the 3 business credit bureaus will be kind of looking at and assessing. We work with cleaning things up, adding things that need to be added, modifying what needs to be changed, taking things off that needs to be taken off, and all those things to make your business presentable to the financial world. It's only after we've established that credit profile do we then register your LLC, C Corp, or S Corp to those 3 business credit bureaus. And then once we do that, the fun sort of starts. So I mentioned that roughly 7% of lenders and vendors report automatically to those 3 business credit bureaus. What we have in our process is we partnered with 1,100 lenders and vendors. And a part of that partnership, part of the condition of the partnership is that they all have to report to at least one or more of those business credit bureaus. That's a condition. The second condition is that they have to give us their underwriter approval requirement. So the small businesses that we work with will not apply if they won't meet the requirements. So every time our members apply, they get approved for these different, from these different vendors and lenders. So the guesswork is taken away, especially who's going to report to the business credit bureaus. The other thing I should mention is the 3 business credit bureaus, they put lenders and vendors in 4 tiers or categories. And you can think of the tiers as size of the vendor, smaller tier, line of credit, smaller tier, larger vendors, larger tiers. So we have to take our sort of members through this journey to go through tier 1, demonstrate your payment, and then you advance through the tiers. So the the third step is for you to start what I call the purchase and pay process. You make purchases, you make the payment on time or early, and that is the most important thing, again, to these three business credit bureaus. Demonstrated on-time payment. So you make your payment on time or early is better. Once you start this process, we also set up a business credit bureau monitoring report, much like on the consumer side where you have, say, Credit Karma. On the business side, we do the same thing to make sure that you get the credit for your payment, right? And we also want to make sure that nothing pops up on your business credit report that shouldn't be there. So this monitoring starts after you start your tier 1 purchasing. Once you demonstrate your payment through tier 1, you will then go to tier 2. And as I mentioned, the vendors and the lenders are a little bit bigger. You get a little bit of a bigger line of credit, and you demonstrate, again, your purchase and payment, and then you advance to tier 3. Again, you see bigger vendors, bigger lenders, you see some fuel cards, gas cards, etc. And then finally, you get to tier 4. Tier 4 is where you're actually building corporate credit. Tiers 1 through 3, think of those as you're demonstrating your on-time payment to the tier 1 vendors, and then you advance to the tier 2 vendors. You demonstrate your on-time payment to the tier 2 vendors, and you advance to tier 3, and so on and so forth. Once you go through tier 3, then you have demonstrated the on-time payment, and now you're in building corporate credit, right? The entire process on average for a small business takes about 12 months, but it does depend on a couple things. The biggest thing that drives the speed, if you will, is how capital intensive the company is and how much expenses it has. The more capital intensive, the more expenses, then you can go through this demonstrated purchase and payment a little bit quicker. For Christine, the trucking company owner, she went through this in 10 months. We've had some businesses that have gone through it in 9 months, but if you have a less capital intensive, less expenses, it may take a little bit longer to go through the demonstrated payments at the different tiers. So on IT services and things like that, it may take 13 or 14 months, but every small business can do this. It just may take longer because the purchasing sequence may take some time, but it's just based on meeting the requirements and then advancing to the next step. There are 3 keys to success from my perspective of this process. Number 1, we are partnering with lenders and vendors who will all report to the business credit bureaus. That's one of the biggest challenges, is that most of them don't automatically. Number 2, we will only apply if we will be approved. So because we know the underwriter approval requirements, then our small business members always get approved because they only apply to the different lenders and vendors when they meet the requirements. So that's one key to success. The second key to success is the actual software platform. As you can probably see through this talk, there are a lot of moving parts, right? But we've embedded kind of all the rules, all the requirements, all those different things that, that makes this sometimes confusing into this platform, and established a workflow that's pretty seamless and logical. For a person like Yara who likes order, it's pretty orderly, right? So that's the second thing. The third thing is on the slide right here. All of our small business members has a dedicated credit analyst that will walk you through this program, walk you through this process. They are credentialed with MBAs or higher in finance, and they've worked in the finance space for at least 10 years. So that's the third thing. Those three things collectively make this a successful sort of process. So I went through sort of two small businesses, Christine's trucking company and Katie's restaurant. And starting with the top of the slide, you know, with Christine having corporate credit, she is able to operate her business. Yara mentioned things like cash flow during her talk. She can, you know, establish a nice cash flow mapping process and determine where and what she wants to fund. She will have the available capital if she wants to buy another truck. And, you know, sustainability. If, again, gas prices go up or fuel prices go up, if, you know, the supply chain, you know, kind of gets a little quirky again, she can make decisions on her business because she has, you know, the funds to do that. At the bottom side, if Katie and I saw Katie last night at a chamber event, and she says readily that if she had the corporate credit that she needed, at a minimum, she wouldn't have put her family's assets at risk and be so much in debt. Sometimes you have to make the call that, you know, it's time to move on from your business, but that doesn't necessarily have to mean that you have to take all of your life savings with you. So that, you know, those are the two things that, again, I think speaks to if you're able to separate your personal assets, if you're able to obtain corporate credit, you put your business in the best position to succeed. So this is my final slide. I want to, you know, again, thank Marianne for this opportunity. I think this is, again, one of the most incredibly important topics. And I think it's important because, you know, what small businesses and entrepreneurs do is they bring to life a lot of things that wouldn't come to life, right? So they're needed. But at the same time, oftentimes their dreams are never kind of realized fully because they just basically run out of runway. So what I would suggest to any small business owner is, at a minimum, take a look at your credit profile and kind of start that journey. Doesn't have to be with me, but I would love that opportunity. But start your credit profile, see where you are, and then, you know, start taking that journey towards, you know, having corporate credit. Any incorporated small business can do it. Once your business is incorporated as an LLC, a C Corp, or an S Corp, you are afforded the same benefits as a corporation as when I work with Abbott and Carrier. So I would ask that you really consider that. I thank Marianne again. She's gone. But that's what I have. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Marianne. And I am done. Thank you.
I'm not gone, honey. I'm here. I just went to go grab a tea. Everything is small here, so I was
Okay.
listening to you.
Okay.
I was killing myself laughing when you said phone book, and you're like, oh, some of you might not know what that is, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I remember doing sales, cold calling from the book, right? Yes, I can see Yara. Yes, all of us. Jose is not on camera, but Jose, I'm sure, is part of that ordeal. We have been there, done that. So happy to not do that again.
Right.
Right? Like, that's a lot of paper. Wow. Talk about one. That's one heck of a shoebox, eh, Yara? Oh my gosh, that was so good. Thank you so much for that. And so important. And yeah, you know, I didn't know that your email address and website and that had anything to do with your credit.
Yeah, I mean, what I've come to find out as I started to really work with small businesses the first thing I did as I looked into when I looked into this was I have mentors. You know, you would have been one if I had known you, but entrepreneurs that have had businesses for a long time. And I kind of walked through some of this stuff, and it amazed me how many very successful business owners just aren't aware of this stuff. And I don't even think it's anyone's fault per se, because how would you know? You know, it becomes an opportunity to provide insight, to educate, and we call what we do a rescue mission
Uh,
because
that's a good one.
businesses like I mean I like I said I saw Katie yesterday. We were at a networking fundraising not fundraising nonprofit networking event, and she's become a quick friend of mine, and she just has this very outgoing personality, and it's so unfortunate that her restaurant had to close down. I mean, it's just so unfortunate because everyone used to go there, but she ran out of money.
You know, that too. And sometimes things just happen. And, at first, like, when the thought came into my head of closing down my spa, and I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to close it down. And I'm like, yeah, but I want to change. Yeah, but I don't want to close it down because I'm doing okay. Like, it's almost like a job. It was a steady paycheck, so to speak, but I created it myself, right? And I could leave and go on vacation anytime I want. And I would go like literally about 8 to 10 weeks in a year. Like I was gone and it still functioned. And then it's just like, I don't know, there's just a message that just comes to you and then it keeps kicking you in the head going, will you close this thing already and move on? And after I did it, so I did the bankruptcy and then I shut down the spa and I went to go work where? At a bank, people. It was the most interesting 4 years of my life. I don't believe I'll be repeating that again. I am not a person that needs to be working in a bank. So I went and I met the manager of the bank. I met her at a local networking event. Back then we used to go to networking events in person. And her and I just hit it off. We became friends and she said, why don't you come over here, and I'm like, I don't know about that. First I said no. Then I said, I don't know about that. And then I went part-time and still had the spa open. And I'm like, okay, I could see myself closing this and graduating to full-time. So then I went to full-time and I still kept the spa open part-time. Like I talk about letting go issues. And now I teach letting go. And I finally just cut the cord and I'm like, okay, let's just go do this. And then I ended up spending 3 years, 3 years and a bit, I suppose, at a branch.
Hmm.
And then I went from the branch, I went to the telephone center because I wanted to become a lender. And it took, you have to get special training to become a lender. And then, so in order to get the fast track of that, because there was such a long lineup of people, in the branches, you have to go to telephone banking to like you're first in line, like everyone's first in line. You go training, you can't, in fact, you can't work on the phones until they train you in the lending. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. I can do it. I can do it. And so that involved me going right downtown Toronto, which I can't stand going to Toronto, downtown Toronto anymore. It's just way too congested. Once upon a time, it was my favorite place. Now it's like it's too much. It's okay to go there to watch a play or something, every once in a while, but every day to work, not my thing. I had to take a GO train, which is like a local train here, and then a subway. I like, are you, this is how to, and I'm spoiled, I live in the burbs. Like I want a car. I want to drive to work, park for free. That's what I want, like an old concept, right? And I did it. I did it. I sometimes will do that. I will just challenge the pants off of myself. And I'm challenging myself right now with this digital product that I just purchased and will be selling, which I think is, I don't know, crazy or amazing, one or the other. It either works out to be yay, or it's like, what the heck were you thinking? Oh, well, next. That's the fun part of entrepreneurship. You don't have to consult with the CEOs, the CFOs, the board, the this, the that. You just get to make your own mistakes all you want, and you have to pay for them. And such is entrepreneurship. Anyways, thank you so much, Cedric. This was so much fun. Thank you also for helping me co-host. I know that you have to go soon, so I appreciate you. I know our friend Jose Escobar is up next, so I am going to introduce him, and I'm going to say thank you again.
You're welcome. You're welcome.